United States, the British Prime Minister will be going into the Oval Office to meet him. And it is a big moment. It's a big moment because there's a lot on the table. Trump has made it clear to me personally, he not only loves the United Kingdom, he wants to rebuild a relationship that was so sorely damaged over the course of the last 8 years. And from Mrs. May's perspective, well, she, of course, is facing some very tough renegotiations in Brussels. Mr. Juncker and his mates are saying we'll make life as tough as possible. We want Britain to become the exception. You know, you cannot have other countries following Britain, therefore we won't offer a deal. And one of the things that would massively strengthen Britain's hand, and particularly in terms of showing there's a bigger world out there than Europe, would be a trade deal with the USA. So Trump says he wants to put America first. May says she wants to put British interest first. But perhaps a trade deal between two countries that won't undercut each other, perhaps that offers potential advantages for both. The question, though, is, if I think about Mrs. May and I think about Donald J. Trump, I can't actually think of two people who are frankly more different. Different styles, different approaches to politics. And I've been wondering myself about the chemistry of all of this. And I wonder what you think tonight. What approach should Theresa May take when she goes into that Oval Office tomorrow? Should she apologise for all the previous comments Conservatives have made about Trump? Should she go and lecture him, as some have suggested, on women's issues, or Trump's comments about torture yesterday? Should she be tough when she goes in there and make sure that even though we're a smaller country than the USA, these deals will be that of an equal partnership? Just what approach should she take? And I want your comments, your opinions, your thoughts. To get involved, call me on 0345 60 60 973. Text me on 84850. You can tweet me on @LBC. Don't forget the hashtag Farage on LBC. And you can watch the show live. Go to LBC's Facebook page now. Now, I have got somebody coming on the phone called Professor Ted Malloch. Ted has in the past, amongst many other things, been an ambassador at the United Nations. He is tipped, he is the bookie's favourite, to be the Trump appointment to Brussels as America's ambassador to the European Union. But more importantly, Ted knows Trump, knows Trump's team, I would think in many ways far better than I do. And I just wonder, Ted, good evening, Ted. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
How are you, Nigel? Yes.
I'm extremely well. Ted, I am curious because I'm thinking about Mrs. May, who is a very home counties, very respectable, very reserved kind of person. And then I'm thinking about Donald J. Trump, who is kind of out there, isn't he, in terms of what he says and the way that he behaves. Ted, how do you see the chemistry in that office tomorrow?
Well, I think I agree with you. You couldn't find two more different human beings on the planet, except that they both speak the English language. They both love the Anglosphere, and I think they see the common interest that they can have together. So they are not like the Iron Lady and the Gipper, and we shouldn't have that expectation. But I do think that their common cause together, if she's positive, and I suggested to her team that she be positive, that they could actually hit it off and learn to dance together. Yeah,
I mean, one of the sort of thoughts that people have had, and I was there at the inauguration as you were, and I listened to the last part of Trump's speech, and he kept saying America first. And there are some critics here, Ted, who were saying, well, how can May get a good trade deal? How can she build a good relationship if Trump is intent on putting America first?
Well, I think that America has its national interest, Britain has its national interest, and they can be mutual. I mean, there can be reciprocity and then there can be benefit to both. But any trade deal is going to have to be hammered out, and there are obviously going to be compromises on both sides. But I think what's fortunate in this case, and with this timing, at this point when, Brexit has occurred, as you better than anyone else knows, Britain needs a big partner in the world, and Donald Trump has stepped up to be that partner.
So you think this trade deal can be done easy peasy?
Well, easy peasy. I think it can be done in 90 days. I've said that. If you get the right people in the right place with the right instructions, and you actually from the top tell them this has to be hammered out, it can be done. And then when Britain is ready to leave, which is, of course, 2 years from now, the next day you can announce we have a trade deal with the United States of America.
But is that going to be good enough for Trump? I mean, we've seen already this week, Ted, that Trump moves quickly. He gets things done. And I mean, you know, the very idea...
Gotta go.
You know, you got to go. Ted, thank you for your insight. That's marvellous. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ted Malloch says that you can put your own national interests first and come to a deal that actually mutually suits both. And that's great. I actually think he's probably right. But what approach should May take? Malloch has advised the British government she should be positive. There are many others who think she should go there with a different agenda tomorrow. Many who think that actually Trump needs to be given a serious ticking off for one or two of the things that he's said. And I wonder what you think. I wonder what James in Berwick-on-Tweed in Northumberland thinks. James, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Yeah, right. Well, I think from a diplomatic point of view, I think one thing that Theresa May could go into the meeting with is an intention to express sympathy, if that's the word, because Donald Trump is very clearly very much preoccupied with the fact that he's won the presidency, but he lost the popular vote by a very significant margin. Now, I'm not talking about what's right or wrong about that, but obviously it's something that plays on his mind, and you can imagine why. Really, he's won the presidency. He's the most important man in the world. However, there is this question mark about the popular vote. And that does matter to him. He is Mr. Popular. This is part of his personality, as you know better than I do. So I think expressing some sympathy with that, and the fact that actually she doesn't have a mandate that is even up to that standard.
Sure. I mean, James, the point about the popular vote is that Trump did not visit California once in the whole campaign. He thought, to hell with it. I'm going to lose anyway. I won't get the Electoral College votes. What is the point? So Clinton beat him in California by 4 million votes. And he, of course, finished up 3 million votes behind us. So I think, the reason that he was those votes behind is he frankly just blanked California. But I mean, do you think, James, she's going to be overawed by this guy?
I don't think necessarily overawed, but I don't think she's going to be necessarily seeking to talk to him as an equal in the way that I think she needs to. This is my impression about Theresa May. I just happened to see a clip. Obviously everybody saw the thing at the EU summit where that was unfortunate. That was unfortunate, really. I mean, she can't expect necessarily to have the sort of welcome that she would normally get as a PM from Britain after what's happened. But for instance, she blanked it seemed to me the Taoiseach of Ireland. When they had a photo opportunity, she just blanked him. And I just wonder whether she is really able to accept that this is a meeting between two equals, because that's what it is. And
so she needs self-confidence, James, doesn't she? She needs to step up to the plate, and you're quite right. She should not be worried if senior EU officials are unpleasant to her. I've had 17 years of it. I know all about it. I wonder what Will in Evesham thinks. Will, what should Theresa May be talking about? What approach should she take to this new president?
Good evening, Nigel. Shouldn't she be talking about some values? I mean, last time I checked, torture wasn't very good in the UK. Surely, if this was a president of any other country who's just come out, internationally endorsed torture, quite proud of the fact, doesn't that ask some serious questions about his values? I know values aren't important to you, but they're quite important to a lot of people.
Well, of course, we should remember that British governments in the past somewhat turned a blind eye, didn't they, to the rendition process? And it was George W. Bush who very openly used these techniques. I have to say, Will, this is an issue that I thought about personally. I've never been convinced, actually, that torture would get you the results that you want. But just to be fair to Trump here, he was asked in an interview what his attitude was. He said he believed in the use of waterboarding, but that it wasn't up to him. It was up to the CIA director, and it was up to the defence chief, and it will be up to those two men to decide whether they wanted to push Congress into having another vote. So I don't actually think that May necessarily needs to lecture him on this.
Let me finish. I know you're not used to letting people finish. But if you, there's a leader of the free world setting surely a model message, and you're saying now on a question as fundamental as torture, that he's going to ask his defence secretary What do you think? I think it's a great thing. And you don't think there's an issue there, do you, Nigel?
Well, let's be frank. This has been American policy for some considerable part, of this millennium. So Obama stopped it. He would reintroduce it. Frankly, I don't think. I don't think that Congress.
I thought you didn't like politicians who avoided the point. Is there a moral issue with a president who suggests that torture and actually actively endorses torture? Do you see a moral...
Well, he also actively endorses the death penalty, as did Obama. There are many, many issues where, on social issues, abortion, for example, there are many issues here where Britain and America are very, very different. And whilst Trump may think that torture works, he's not himself going to be campaigning for it, and I doubt, to be honest with you, that it's going to be an issue, because I don't see Congress passing it. But I understand your point, that there are moral issues to talk about, but there is give and take. And if she goes down that line, in my opinion, she'll get stuck debating abortion. She'll get stuck talking about the death penalty, and that, I think, will be bad news. Your texts and tweets coming in. Text, nice hat, Nigel. For those that can't see, I'm wearing a Make America Great Again hat that Ian Dale brought back with him from the USA. It's going to be interesting. I hope she has some lead and impresses him so we can get some fair business done. Dan in Wellingborough. Nice one here. A tweet here that I perhaps possibly agree with. May Trump opposites attract. Well, let's hope that's right. And lastly, another tweet. Nigel, love the baseball cap and the suit tonight. A bit quirky, but stylish. Well, take your pick. Right now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Giving homework children should be stopped because, quotes, it's stressful, and it's the parents who end up doing it. Well, there's some truth to that. Jamie's in Mitcham. What can you tell me, Jamie?
I'm on my last year of sixth form now. I should have been in school an hour ago now, but instead I'm at home trying to catch up on the homework that I have in for today.
How far back does some of this homework go?
It's only a week or two back.
It's a week or two. So, look, I've had sons, so that's probably 3 weeks, or certainly back to December. Jamie, never kid a kidder.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Vodafone's biggest ever winter sale ends on the 31st of January. It's your last chance to get 6 months half price on selected pay monthly bundles, plus up to 50% off pay-as-you-go phones and home broadband connection fees. Discover in store or search Vodafone Winter Sale. Vodafone, power to you.
Minimum term agreement and credit check may apply while stocks last. Broadband subject to availability, acceptance and delivery charges.
I'm Dr. Michael Zivitz, Senior Clinician at TDC Dental Implants. People have asked whether we really can give you fixed teeth on implants in just one day. Yes, we can.
And they fixed my teeth in a day, and I haven't looked back since. I was so pleased with the result.
In just one day, we'll give you a full set of beautiful teeth fixed in your mouth.
I just wanted to get it sorted properly so I had permanent teeth again, and that's what I've got.
Around 3 months later, we exchange your fixed teeth for a new permanent set. For details, visit smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
We're looking for exceptional chauffeurs. UKME provides a 6-star quality hospitality and property management service to exclusive VIP clients around London and the home counties. We're looking for professional chauffeurs who will take pride in looking after our clients. Apply at ukme.co.uk.
Discover Canada for less this year with the Air Transat Canada seat sale. Just released, there's big savings on summer 2017 flights. Fly direct non-stop from London to Vancouver for just £397 return, with meals and a 23-kilogram luggage allowance included. London direct to Vancouver from £397. Don't miss out. The Canada seat sale. Book by January 30th at airtransat.co.uk.
How many tablets did you take this morning? On average, people over 55 say 4. That's over 100 a month. Well, at least for your painful joints, there's an alternative treatment. Voltarol 12-hour gel works deep in the joint to fight pain and inflammation all day long. Voltarol 12-hour gel. Let's hear it for the joy of movement. Ask your pharmacist.
Voltarol 12-hour MHLP 2.32% gel contains diclofenac diethylammonium for relief of pain and inflammation. Always read the label.
La La Land is the most acclaimed film at this year's BAFTAs, with an incredible 11 nominations. It's the most awarded film in Golden Globe history, and now has an outstanding 14 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture of the Year. It's the film that critics are raving about. A masterpiece, says The Guardian. They just don't make films like this anymore, says the Evening Standard. 5 stars from The Times and The Telegraph. Don't miss it on the big screen. La La Land, in cinemas now.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
It's a big day tomorrow as two very different people meet in the Oval Office. The question I'm asking is, how should Mrs May approach this meeting and the 45th President of the USA? And let me throw in a thought from myself. I've met Trump a few times, and I know some of the people around Trump who I've known for years. And the one thing about Trump, and you know, people who've known him, we had Ted Malloch on earlier, who knows him. I've spoken to Piers Morgan, who's known him quite well for about 8-9 years. One thing about Trump is he's incredibly loyal to people. You know, when I spoke with him on that stage in Mississippi, because I'd kind of put my head over the parapet in the way that I had, he said to me on that stage as I was walking off, "You will be my friend for life." And I got a feeling when he said it, he absolutely meant it. But he also is somebody who doesn't forget. He does not forget if people cross him or say unpleasant things about him. And I can certainly vouch for the fact that some of his team feel the same way. Now, traditionally, there's been an amazingly close relationship between the British Conservative Party and the American Republicans. But just have a think about this. You know, the two senior staffers in Mrs May's team in 10 Downing Street, one of them, Fiona Hill, said during the campaign, Donald Trump is a chump. Nick Timothy, seen very much to be the Rasputin of Downing Street these days, said American politics was depressing enough before Trump took off. Ugh, as a Tory, I don't want any reaching out to Trump. Boris Johnson. Boris, always great for a quote. It's normally cities that he slags off, but Boris said of Trump, he said, "The only reason I wouldn't visit some parts of New York is the real risk of meeting Donald Trump." But it goes a bit higher, because David Cameron, our former Prime Minister, said Trump is stupid, divisive and wrong. And Mrs May herself said, "I take a simple view about the way I like to see campaigns being conducted. I like them to be conducted in a calm and measured way, with proper consideration of the issues," which pretty clearly was a dig at the Donald's campaign style. And I'm going to throw this in. This is my two penneth. I think straight-talking businessmen like Trump probably do bear grudges. But the one thing they do respect is people who front up, is people who say, "Do you know what? We have made a Horlicks of this. We've got this wrong." And I think what Mrs May needs to do early on in that meeting is to apologise for the bad blood there's been between the Conservatives and his campaign and attempt to wipe the slate clean and then crack on with a really positive meeting. That's what I think. But I wonder, I've got a call here from Chicago. Eric, tell me, how do you think this meeting's going to go tomorrow? What should Mrs May be doing?
Hi, Nigel. It's lovely to speak to you.
Good evening. What do you think?
Well, as you were just saying, I really hope Miss May takes a responsible, mature approach, because I'm really interested in British politics, and it seemed like all the politicians there try to have a swing at Mr. Trump. It was almost a contest to see who could knock him off as hard as possible. So hopefully tomorrow she takes a responsible approach. She really has no leverage with the EU trying to, come down on her in a hard way. So a trade deal with America would do good for Britain, I believe.
Yes, Eric, I do too. And I think it would not only be good, because there are some, in financial services and things like that, there are some quite significant barriers to trade between us and the USA. It isn't so much an issue of tariff, but perhaps, more an issue of regulation. Eric, my problem with it is this, that let's just say they meet in the Oval Office, it all goes fantastically well. Trump says, listen, we love you guys. We want to do a free trade deal with you. It'll be good for us. It'll be good for you. And boy, it'll strengthen your hand when you go and meet these unelected people in Brussels. I tell you what, Theresa, let's start work now. My people will work 24 hours a day. We'll get this done and dusted in 90 days, and then we can sign a trade deal in a few months' time. And Theresa May then says, well, that's very sweet of you, Donald. And yes, it would be incredibly useful, but unfortunately, Mr Juncker at the European Commission won't let me sign this trade deal until we've left the European Union, which looks like being in March 2019. Eric, my view is Trump is unlikely to have much sympathy with that.
Yeah, I believe so as well. And if I could ask you another question, Nigel, I was wondering about the Supreme Court ruling that happened a few days ago.
Yeah.
And I just thought this would be more of a positive for you, more so than a negative, because your show a couple of days ago seemed a little down on it. But don't you think this is a great way to legitimize Brexit? And because if the politicians don't do what the people have voted for, they've kind of show themselves for who they really are, and this might be a good thing.
Yeah, there is an argument. I mean, Eric, there are some arguing. No, actually, it's a good thing, because Parliament will vote on this, and Parliament will pass that, and that will end the argument. Yeah, I get that, Eric. However, for me, the real issue, and why I was pretty angry a couple of nights ago, is that government leaflet, the official leaflet that went to every home in Britain, could not have been clearer. You know, this is your referendum, this is your choice, we will do whatever you ask us. And that's why I was upset. Eric, I'll be frank with you, I'm not too worried about this. Whilst there will be rebels within the Labour Party, Article 50 will go through, and I, at the moment, doubt that any serious amendments will go through. And I repeat the point. If they do, if Parliament does, water down this Brexit or delay this Brexit, we will have a political revolution, the likes of which this country has not seen in years. Eric from Chicago, thank you very much indeed for your call. Facebook messages. Rhoda Baker says, I'm sure Nigel Farage prefers Britain to be America's 51st state instead of staying in the EU. No, Rhoda. I want us to be an independent, sovereign, democratic nation. I want us to strike out, have friendships right across the world. The choice is not Brussels or Washington. It's us running our own country here. Tracy Howitt says, May should do everything that she can to build a good and lasting relationship with the President. He is prepared to do everything to help Britain whilst helping the EU go down the tube. Well, I think that's probably right. I think Trump is a mega Eurosceptic. And if Ted Malloch, who we had on the programme earlier, becomes America's ambassador in Brussels, it will be a 180-degree change in terms of policy from everything the Americans have said since the early 1960s. It is going to be quite lively in Brussels if Ted gets that job. I wonder what Danny in Bethnal Greens thinks. Danny, what should the Prime Minister be doing tomorrow?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I just wanted to say, I was only 9 years old. I love Nigel Farage so much. I had all the ribbons and manifestos. Every night I prayed to Farage before bed. Britain is love, I'd say. Britain is life. Jean-Claude Juncker hears me.
Right, I think we've lost Danny. That wasn't making a lot of sense. Right, let's move on. Let's go to Nick in Dartford. Nick, what should our Prime Minister be trying to do in that Oval Office tomorrow? What approach should she take?
Hello there, Nigel. How
Hello.
are you? All right?
I'm well.
Good. I think, first and foremost, she's got to act very professional and not try to be his mother. In other words, don't, bring up the green policy, the feminine policy, all this, that and the other, just talk business. Good, straight, because he's a businessman, streetwise and everything else, yeah?
Right, so hard-headed, down to business, snappy.
Exactly, yeah. Don't say pleasantries, have all that, nothing, nasty. Apologise for our silly, immature... I don't like calling them politicians. They're MPs, a member of a party.
Yeah.
I don't think they're big enough to be politicians. No, seriously, they haven't earned it.
But you think that it's got to be a business-like approach, and she sits there knowing that she's every bit his equal, yeah?
Because if she gets these trust, she's got lots of enemies over here in our country. By Christ, we all have, haven't we?
Well, I can vouch for that, Nick. Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
I know. And me, I've been voting since the 60s. So, how can I say? I've always voted for either Labour or the Tories.
Yeah.
Never the Liberals, never had any belief in them. I've been proven right here. Mother daddy they are. And how can I put it? None of them ever come round from my country, yeah?
Well, Theresa May's got her chance to do something big, hasn't she? Something big on the world stage, something big for this country's economy, something big for our renegotiation with Brussels. And maybe, Nick, maybe she'll restore your faith in politicians. Let's see. It's a big day tomorrow. A few of your texts and tweets coming in. Nigel, Mrs. May should be only focused on two things: a trade deal with the US and building a personal rapport and relationship with Trump. Anything else would dilute the visit and would be a missed opportunity, says Rakesh. And Stephen from Hazelmere says, I feel Mrs. May ought to move with expedience, as Donald Trump talks and then gets the job done. It can repair a poor economy. It could be the model to rebuild the broken British Empire. Well, that's very optimistic, Stephen. I don't think that America is coming back into the British Empire, however successful Theresa May is tomorrow. But I do think it's a great opportunity. And I do agree with all the callers who say that once or twice on the international stage, since she's been the Prime Minister, she's looked a little overawed. She looked genuinely shocked, when she was snubbed in Brussels. And she's got to walk through that room, absolutely chin up, and say, we may be smaller than America, but we can be equal to America. We can do something really special here for the whole of the free world. There's a lot at stake. Actually, I have to say, even though they're very different people, I am optimistic that the meeting will go well. I just worry what happens when she says to him, but we can't sign this piece of paper for 2 years. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
Nigel Farage has told LBC that Theresa May should apologise to Donald Trump for what was said about him in Britain during the US election campaign when she meets him tomorrow.
I think straight-talking businessmen like Trump probably do bear grudges. But the one thing they do respect is people who front up, is people who say, do you know what? We have made a Horlicks of this. We've got this wrong.
Donald Trump says he will personally handle a UK-US trade deal with Mrs May in tomorrow's meeting. A shadow minister's resigned after Jeremy Corbyn ordered Labour MPs to back the government's Article 50 bill. Tulip Siddiq, who was Shadow Education Minister, says she wants to fight against a hard Brexit. And Tim Peake says he's hugely excited that he's going back into space. He's announced he's to return to the International Space Station. LBC weather. Cold and frosty for most overnight, a low of -2 Celsius. Tomorrow, a mix of rain, sunshine and cloud, breezy, a high of 10 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening, I'm Andy Lake. Very busy one then. Starting off in Hammersmith, the A4 is partially blocked westbound because of an accident at the Hammersmith flyover. That's causing queues on the approach there. In North London, the North Circular is queuing eastbound from the Coney Hatch interchange to the Kenninghall interchange after an accident earlier on this evening. Long delays still. In East London, the A12 has long delays as well. That's northbound between Hackney Wick and the Redbridge roundabout. Now in Bedfordshire, the A1 is closed northbound to the west side of St Neots. Southbound is now open though. It's all after an accident around the Kimbolton turn-off earlier on. There have been severe delays all around there for hours now. The A421 still solid back to Bedford, approaching the A1 at the Black Cat roundabout. Elsewhere in Bedfordshire, the M1 is also closed northbound because of an accident between junction 13 for Bedford and 14 for the A509 at Milton Keynes. It's been brought to a standstill on the approach and it's still solid all the way back to Flitwick. As for the tubes, of course, strike action by RMT union members is underway until 9:30 p.m. The Waterloo and City line is suspended and there's no central line from Leytonstone to Woodford and Epping, and a reduced service on the rest of the line. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
If you want to upgrade your car, don't miss out on the Car Giant sale. It ends on the 31st. Save time, save money, with up to 8,000 cars in stock at incredible prices. Giant choice, giant savings. The Car Giant sale must end soon. Book a test drive at cargiant.co.uk.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
The Multi-York Winter Sale is now on with big savings on all our quality sofas. And did you know we can help create the right sofa for you with over 50 sofa styles to choose from? You can choose from a wide selection of natural and designer fabrics. You can shop in store and online, where you can order a brochure and request free fabric samples. The Multi-York Winter Sale is now on. Save up to 40% today at all stores nationwide and at multiyork.co.uk.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge bedding bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Groveley-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge bedding bed.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one. How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At The Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word YES to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's YES to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with The Pension Works.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Mrs. May goes to Washington. She'll be in the Oval Office tomorrow, meeting the 45th President of the United States of America. And the question I'm asking is, what approach should she take? And a text here that I rather like. Nigel, you should be there, helping get the best deal for Britain. Tom in Basingstoke. Tom, there was a bookmaker this morning offering a price that I would actually be in the room when she walked in. You can't imagine how much of a nightmare that would be. I have offered to help Tom, but they don't want me. I'm not good enough. But that's okay, because LBC did. So here I am, and I'm very happy, and I'm enjoying myself. And I'm asking this question: what approach should the Prime Minister take when she walks into that Oval Office tomorrow? I wonder what Robert in Dulwich thinks.
Hi, good evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
I love the idea of you popping out from behind Winston Churchill's bust. Surprise!
Well, one thing, Robert, I will say, the one thing I am just a little bit proud of, and I've no doubt I'll be shot down for saying this, but when I met Trump 4 days after the election in his apartment in Trump Tower, I did rather cheekily say at the end of the meeting, please, Donald, could you put the bust of Winston Churchill back in the Oval Office? Because that would be a great symbol that our two countries are going to come back together again. And can you believe it? The bust went back on day number 1, which I think, Robert, shows that Trump has got very good intentions towards this country. But what should Theresa do, Robert? That's the real question.
Okay, so she goes into that meeting with Trump, and the fact is that her parliament, or the parliament that she is a member of, actually set aside time to debate whether they should ban Donald Trump coming to this country in the run-up to the US election.
They did.
The backdrop is of members of her own cabinet publicly attacking the man in the run-up to a general election and saying very nasty things about him. I think she should go in and simply apologise. And in the same way that Lily Allen went to Calais, and do you remember she apologised on behalf of the British people to the refugees there? You've been travelling a lot, maybe you missed that.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. Any thought that the Prime Minister should behave like Lily Allen, Robert, upsets me terribly, and I don't think would necessarily endear Mr. Trump. But I mean, you know, what I was saying earlier, and you're on the same lines, is what she needs to do quickly is wipe the slate clean. Get all this nonsense out of the way. And you're quite right. I talked about some of the personal things that have been said, but there was a petition to try and get him banned from coming to the UK. And, you know, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, wasn't very keen on the idea that Mr. Trump should come to this country either. But it's a question, Robert, of how you apologise, isn't it? And you know, if you walk in sort of shamefacedly, that's not the way to do it, is it? It's to front him up and say, OK, there's been some bad stuff said. I'm sorry about it. Can we just wipe the slate clean, Donald, and move on? And I've worked with these big business-type people, and they actually do respect a bit of honesty, a bit of truth, and they love an apology, and then she can move on. Robert, we'll see what happens. There's going to be a press conference, by the way. There'll be a joint press conference between May and Trump after the meeting tomorrow. And I just think it's going to be the most fascinating day. I really do. James in Pinner, how do you think our Prime Minister should approach Trump?
Well, I think to be on the front foot is to recognise the differences between the two of them and effectively lean on each other's experiences and strength and skills. I mean, with Theresa May, you've got the consummate politician, been a politician all of her life, held difficult positions like Home Secretary, been absolutely up to her neck in the European Union, understands Europe. She can be a massive help to Trump in terms of how he wants to engage on foreign policy and all sorts of things. Trump, on the other hand, has been a businessman all his life, has got no experience of politics, but he knows how to strike a deal. You know, deals are all about understanding negotiation, understanding power. The thing that's probably got Trump rattled at the moment is that Merkel is sitting there with a market that has a population in it of 440 million, if you take the UK out of it. He needs to know how does he engage with that. The more that he can use Theresa May to undermine Merkel's position and to open up that market and effectively leave the BMWs, the Mercedes and the Volkswagens sitting in Germany and try and get the Chryslers and the Fords breaking into Europe is going to be his strategy.
It's going to be very interesting, James, isn't it? That whole side of it. I see where you're coming from, but I worry slightly because Trump really dislikes the European Union. He loathes it. You know, he believes in nation-state democracy very much, as I've always believed. Mrs May's line is that we're leaving it, but we wish the European Union well. So, James, it's going to be fascinating to see, you know, what comes of that European debate, and even more fascinating to see what's said about it at the press conference afterwards. And nearly always with these press conferences, you can tell from what's not been said actually where the problems may be. Your Facebook messages coming through fast. Roger, nice hat, Nige. Gift from Donald. Well, for those watching on Facebook, I am wearing a Great America, Make America Great Again hat. Jason Stevens says, Theresa May should be signing a quality trade deal with America and telling Europe, if you don't do the right thing by Britain, we're out. Well, kind of, Jason, we've sort of told them that already, I thought. David Lincoln says, we will see how much of a backbone Theresa May has. In all honesty, she has a lot of room to insist as to what the rules are. Juncker doesn't have any credibility as to when the deal is signed. And Stephen Cliff says, if she signed a trade deal, what the hell could they do? Sign away, Mrs May. I like it. Very good. I wonder what Ellis in Cheshire thinks. Ellis, what does our Prime Minister need to do tomorrow?
To be honest with you, Nigel, I actually think you've got it wrong on this one. You say that we should apologise. I'm a massive fan of yours, by the way. I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. But I think, look, as best friends go, we need to tell him when he's wrong. He said some stupid things in the election campaign, and he said some stupid things about women. And I actually quite like Trump. I think he's fresh. I think he's going to actually bring a really good mix to the to the world's democracy. And and he wants to do a trade deal with the UK. But she's got to talk frankly. And we should have a relationship with her like that, because we couldn't have it when Blair was there, because Blair took us into a war that we should have never been in. So actually, we do need to have frank talks with him. And actually, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's what best friends should do.
Yes, I mean, you're right. There could be a sort of two-way apology that goes on here, I guess. And I see where you're coming from, Ellis. On those quotes, those horrible quotes about women, he did apologise profusely. You know, I was there in Las Vegas at the debate. I saw him do it. He did apologise for it. But look, Ellis, I'm not suggesting, by the way, this apology takes up much of the meeting. It doesn't need to. It's just that question of fronting up and saying, look, my entire cabinet said horrible things about you. The whole opposition, many of the opposition party didn't think you should even be allowed to visit our country. Alex Salmond's been beastly about you. Let's forget about it. I want to work with you. I want to put it all behind us and get on and do something for the benefit of both. Ellis, do you want to see this trade deal done?
Yes, absolutely. I want us to have a trade deal as quickly as possible.
What about NATO, Ellis? What about NATO? What does she need to say to him about NATO?
I think he needs to we do kind of need him there, I think the most important thing is negotiating that trade deal. I think, first of all, that's the most important thing that needs to happen at the moment. We need to actually get the ball rolling, because once we're talking to America and people know we're serious about doing trade deals, the rest will come flooding in.
Yep. OK, Ellis, brilliant. Thank you. And a very positive text that's come in here from Alan in London. The UK and the USA need the special relationship with each other much more than they need a dysfunctional relationship with the European Union. So Trump and May are sure to hit it off really well. Good luck. Very, very optimistic. I wonder, is Ali in Stoke Newington optimistic about tomorrow? And how do you think the Prime Minister should approach Trump?
Hi, Nigel. Congratulations on last year's campaigning.
Thank you.
I think Theresa May should align our interests with Donald Trump in weakening Germany. We don't know what's going to happen in the summer with the French election, and if the French come out of the European Union or express an intent to do so, then I think this is a win-win situation potentially.
Yes.
If we can get a trade deal, less weaken Germany and open up the markets for our cars and their cars, I think it's going to go a long way.
But I did hear, Ali, I heard an LBC presenter this morning with the name of O'Brien say that he thought it was humiliating for the British Prime Minister to be going to the Oval Office and looking for a trade deal when we had these wonderful friends in Europe. I mean, I would have thought it's the other way around, isn't it? Shouldn't we be proud that it's our Prime Minister that is the first global leader going there?
Yeah, I mean, people have short memories. They've forgotten where the European Union was 2 years ago with what was happening with Greece. I think the Varoufakis made very good arguments. But what happened, Wolfgang Schäuble, he overruled all of his good arguments, and they proved themselves to be a very unreasonable set of people to deal with. I think Donald Trump is a game changer, and I think we should align our interests with him.
Ali, terrific. I love your positivity. It's brilliant. Tweet here, sorry to break up the Trump fan club, but how can you apologise to a man who thinks torture is OK? Well, look, he thinks the death penalty is OK, and most people in Britain now, I would suggest, don't. He has cut all funding for abortion taking place in the third world, and I'm guessing many of you listening to this will take a different view. You know, we have the same language. There are many things we share in common, but there are some quite big cultural differences too. And I would have thought if tomorrow's meeting gets into lecturing and moralising on these issues, then it would end as a disaster. That is certainly my feeling. You're listening to Nigel Farage exclusively here on LBC. The time now is 7:45.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Jeremy Corbyn has told his MPs they've got to support the Brexit bill to trigger Article 50. Is this a clear, tough line from Mr Corbyn or another Labour muddle?
Clive Bull on LBC.
La La Land is the most acclaimed film at this year's BAFTAs, with an incredible 11 nominations. It's the most awarded film in Golden Globe history, and now has an outstanding 14 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture of the Year. It's the film that critics are raving about. A masterpiece, says The Guardian. They just don't make films like this anymore, says the Evening Standard. 5 stars from The Times and The Telegraph. Don't miss it on the big screen. La La Land, in cinemas now.
Here's another true story from Alder Martin, Baines and Cuthbert. When fire tore through a residential London development in 2015, the local health and safety executive were quickly on the scene. Fortunately, ABC had all the right health and safety paperwork and certificates, and to the great relief of the building's owners, were able to prove there was no fault. No fuss, no hassle. For block management, ABC Estates will give your story an ending that'll make you as happy as Larry. Find out more at abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
I'm Tom. I'm in year 11. I was always getting told off for talking, so I thought about the debating team. Now I'm thinking about university.
I put the debating team flyer in his desk. Was sick of telling him to pipe down. I wanted to put his voice to better use. Now he's thinking about university. I teach year 11. I'm Mr Corbett.
Apply now and you could get a £25,000 tax-free training bursary to teach subjects like maths and languages. Search Get Into Teaching. Subject to eligibility. Selected subjects only.
From working 9 to 5 to working on your tan. Experience the best of Asia, Australia and New Zealand with Singapore Airlines. With great fares to Thailand, the Philippines, Australia and more, there's no better time to plan your next getaway. Book now at singaporeair.com. Singapore Airlines, a great way to fly.
On a travel pack tailor-made holiday, you get to see the very best of the world. Tour the famous Route 66, the spectacular Canadian Rockies. Experience the magic and history of India, the wilds of Africa, or the exotic Far East. Start your journey with Travel Pack. For amazing prices on your tailor-made holiday of a lifetime, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Atoll Protected.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Minutes before we went on air, Donald Trump was speaking and he said the British are coming and they want to talk trade. And I will, in my final thought at the top of the hour, give just a few thoughts on my worries about that. Mike Day's worried on Facebook. He says a US trade deal will sell the NHS to US corporations. Mike, you're quite right. There'll be tough chapters to negotiate on the health service, but equally on food safety. Yeah, these things aren't easy. There are lots of difficult negotiations, but if you get them right and remove barriers to trade, there's a lot you can do. Sean Morris is sceptical. He says all this harping on about trade deals, what could we actually sell to the US? Shoes, Savile Row suits, Jaguar motor cars, insurance services, financial products. There's a whole load of things, Sean, that it's quite difficult to sell into America because of regulation, bureaucracy and a little bit of tariff too. And Andy Wotton on Facebook says, Nigel, change the hat to say, make Britain and America great again. I like that. Yasmin in Sunbury. Yasmin, what should Theresa May's approach be tomorrow?
She should just be herself. She's a strong woman. She's a woman with a mind of her own. She managed the police, and they are a tough bunch to deal with as Home Secretary.
Yep.
She should be honest about her views if she has something that she disagrees with him, because it's supposed to be a special relationship. So let's be honest. I mean, we're not the, puppy, the lapdog. We are Great Britain, and in a democracy, if it is still a democracy country with then why should she apologize? It doesn't matter. You should, if you have a just leader, you should be able to say to your leader, you were wrong, you were, racist in your comments. This is not the way to behave, which he did during his campaign. And if she's a true leader for Britain, for Great Britain, she will say what she has to say without having to apologize. And if he is a true leader, he won't hold personal grudges himself, because that's not, that's his own personal thing. He has to look out for the country and negotiate with his special relationship with Britain, as we always have.
Do you think, Yasmin, that meeting is going to end well tomorrow?
It will, because she is a very strong woman, as I said. She's a very sensible woman, and I admire her. And I think she will be able to manage it. And, I think that he will secretly admire her himself, because Donald is one of those men. He likes pretty women, but a strong woman is someone that he looks up to, and I think it will go well.
Well, he's certainly got some form in that department. You're right, Yasmin, very optimistic indeed. Peter in Rains Park, what do you think? I mean, there are some people, Peter, I'm told, who think she shouldn't even be going at all. What do you think her approach should be tomorrow?
I think she should be going in with her nose closed and her fist clenched.
Right.
And what she should be doing, she'd be standing up to the bullies. If you don't stand up to the bullies, the war will be run by bullies. And what you need to understand, Nigel, is that Britain is the best country in the world, and we are the bastion of democracy, not the United States. And we cannot be apologizing to the misogynist, to the racist, to the liars. And we can't, in any relationship, the fundamental principle is to have trust. And how can you build trust with a pathological liar?
So what would you
tell me?
So Peter, what would you do? So Peter, what would you do? I mean, would you not go?
Would you go? Nigel, a lot of people throughout generations gave their lives for us to enjoy the life we have now. And these freedoms we cannot sacrifice them because we're desperate for a deal. Because if you betray your principles, there is no point in living, Nigel.
Well, Peter, I don't know whether you've been to Omaha Beach or any of those American cemeteries across in France, but the Americans paid a pretty heavy price too for this, didn't they?
Well, they didn't pay the price to have someone in the office now, so-called leader of free world, who is a bully, who's just said today, if Mexico doesn't respect the United States, we don't like that. Well, apparently, who's bullying who? He's trying to build a wall Mexicans didn't ask for, and he's telling them they're not respecting the United States.
Peter, I will grant you one thing. He is trying to bully American corporations to make product in that country. And yesterday he announced 2 big gas pipelines. There's been a hell of a row over this for years. He announced 2 big gas pipelines. And when he asked one of the officials, oh, by the way, where's the steel coming from? They were told it was all coming from overseas. And he basically has said, right, scrap that. We're going to build it in America. He will bully big corporations, Peter, but I think, won't he, Peter, stand up for ordinary people against big business and against Washington? Surely he's going to do that.
Nigel, have you been to one of his hotels?
I have, yes.
Have you checked where his towels and everything else is made?
Yes, I have.
I'll tell you a secret. They're made it in China.
Yeah.
Yeah, so isn't it a bit of a hypocrisy? You know, when it comes to his own business, he looks for the best deal, the cheapest, and he goes to make it in China, while telling everyone else to do Americans and buy Americans.
Well, I think he would argue the same with tax, wouldn't he? That he's been allowed through a very complex system in America not to pay tax for many years, and as he says, if you want someone to solve this, get somebody who has been able to use the system to their own advantage, so that it's someone who gets it, so that they can make it fairer. Now, I have been, Peter, to the new Trump hotel in Washington is in the old post office, and it's a fantastic place to go. It's fun, it's buzzy, and I'm supposed to be going there in a few weeks' time, but I didn't check where the towels were made last time, and I promise, Peter, I will report back. Please ring me again in a few weeks, and I'll report back. And thank you. David in High Wycombe. David, what should she do tomorrow?
Well, shouldn't she actually go in and ask why we would want a trade agreement with a country that doesn't want to trade with external countries?
She could ask that, David, but if you think that, you've misread Trump, OK?
No. Hang on a second. You just said a moment ago that all the steel that he's going to use needs to come from inside of America. He needs to encourage all the companies within America to make sure they develop in America. So what use is a trade agreement going to be for the UK with a company which is facing internally instead of externally? And why would we swap a trade agreement with one of the largest bodies in the world who want to trade with us for a country that is actively saying it doesn't want to trade with other countries?
Well, the trade agreement we have with the European Union prevents us having trade agreements with the 4/5, in fact more than 4/5 of the world's economy that is outside the failing European Union. So the point, David, is we're freer, ourselves to do bigger things on a world stage. Trump has a beef with China. He has a beef with Chinese steel. He feels they've massively overproduced, they've dumped it on the world markets, and they've done it using government subsidy, frankly, to put people out of business very unfairly. What Trump will do is he will build genuine free trade deals with countries that he sees as equals. And one of the reasons Trump wants to do this tomorrow is because he wants to show the world he's not isolationist, but he is selective about who his friends should be. Do you buy that point from me?
No, not at all, because realistically, we have trade in this country which is matched to Europe and matched to European environments, and it's matched to those cities. Now, if we were to think about the car industry in the US, it is not relevant to our car industry in the UK. We've got different regulations on our green policies, and the Americans like bigger cars, which aren't suitable for UK roads, and the UK likes small cars that aren't suitable for the US roads because of the vast differences between our countries. How will a trade agreement with a country which is vastly different to ours be suitable then instead of a trade agreement that we've got with a set of countries which match and are engaged with us?
David, I've got a bit of news for you. the year before last, for the first time ever, despite being so Eurocentric in our thinking and convincing ourselves that it's only Europe that would buy our cars, and almost being told that it was Europe that was buying all our cars, we now sell, David, more cars to non-EU countries than we sell to EU countries, and that trend will continue to grow. One of the reasons I campaigned for Brexit is because I wanted this country to go global, and I see tomorrow as being a very, very important step down that road. I want Theresa May to go in there and to stand up and to be proud of who she is, not to feel intimidated in any way at all. Once or twice in Brussels, she seemed to be slightly overawed by the occasion. There's no need for that. I've suggested she tries to wipe the slate clean on what's been said in the past. I'm sure if she says that, he in turn will say to her, I went a bit over the top once or twice. I wanted to be positive, but I think we have a problem. And the problem I think we have is he says, OK, let's go, let's do it. And then what happens is she says, I'm sorry, but Mr. Juncker says we're not allowed to sign a trade deal until you've left the European Union in 2 years' time. She's going to have to start getting a bit tougher, isn't she? Trump won't respect that. Come on, Mrs. May, ignore the EU, get on with it. What could they do? Throw us out? Come on, make Britain great again. You've been listening to Nigel Farage here on LBC. I'm back on Monday at 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Thank you, Nigel. So, Jeremy Corbyn has told his MPs they've got to support the Brexit bill to trigger Article 50 and see it through in just 2 weeks. Is this a clear, tough line from Mr Corbyn or another Labour muddle? We'll have more as well on Theresa May's meeting with Donald Trump. He says he's going to handle the deal himself. Is that good news for the UK? And at 9, it's the Property Hour. With me to answer your questions is property expert and lawyer